In 957, we find out from Sengoku that rocks wanted to become king of the world. Now, is Kaido a diehard supporter of rocks? And if so, maybe the name king is actually paying respect to rocks who wanted to become king of the world. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, and today I will be discovering the secrets about God Valley, how I believe the Lunarian race and king and his ancestors were descended from God Valley, why the Lunarians were genocided, and how it could have started a war between the Celestial Dragons and the Ancient Kingdom. So if you're interested in any of these topics and want to learn about King and his race, stay tuned, hit the like button, and let's get into the video. Marco remembered a conversation between him and Whitebeard, a land of the gods that once lived on top of the Red Line. I believe this land of the gods was God Valley. In chapter 957, we learn about the God Valley incident. We learn that Rocks was a captain of a legendary crew that included Kaido, Big Mom, and most importantly, Whitebeard. Whitebeard says how this land of gods existed a long time before Mary Joy's. He states that the godlike race lived on the Red Line, similar to how the Celestial Dragons have now put Mary Joy's on the Red Line and assembled here 800 years ago after the Void Century. This was when the world government was also founded. So if the Lunarians lived on the Red Line, it had to most likely be during or before the Void Century. The fact that we know Whitebeard was at God Valley incident 38 years ago, and he is the one to bring up this land of gods, is proof they are the same. Other proof can also include Kaido, because Kaido was also at God Valley and he also would know this same secret. And let's talk about King's name. Like I said in the intro to this video, do you believe King is his actual name? If anything, King is more like a title or a name that Kaido gave him, with Queen and King being that duality. But to understand why Kaido named him King, first we must look at Rocks. According to Sengoku, Rock's ambition was to become the king of the world, and then the crew opened up hostilities against the world government. In a previous video, I spoke about how in order to become king of the world, you must first defeat the current ruler sitting atop of the throne. In this case, that is most likely eMDee. We literally see eMDee sitting on top of the throne. And this could all be a lie from the world government, however, what if it's actually true? What if Rocks truly did want to become king of the world? When Sengoku speaks of the Rocks crew being wiped out, he ends it by saying, according to the news report, almost as if he knows for a fact it was a lie. But when speaking of Rock's ambition to become king of the world, he says it himself, nothing added after that, as if he was there or maybe Garp told him and confirmed that it was Rock's true goal. What if by king, Rocks meant king of the Ancient Kingdom like Joy Boy? Because similar to Joy Boy, Rocks was also willing to go to war against the Celestial Dragons and the entire world government. Joy Boy, what if he was the previous ruler of the world, the king of the Ancient Kingdom? But yes, I do think that King's name could be a reference to Rocks, since in many ways, King and Kaido could be similar. Being a rare species of the Onis and the Lunarian races, maybe King reminded Kaido of himself back in the day when he was with Rocks. Or maybe Rocks was actually a Lunarian. This would make the title King, or the name King, mean even more. Or maybe King is actually Rock's son. King, who would have been around 9 years old during the God Valley incident, and with the inherited will concept that Oda loves to place upon these young prodigies in One Piece, I wouldn't be so shocked. Maybe Kaido is a father-like figure, or maybe just an older brother to him in many ways. Big Mom was around 30 at the time of the God Valley incident, and she also considers Kaido a little brother. So I would estimate that Kaido would be at most 15 years younger than Big Mom, but more likely around 5 years younger. And this could put Kaido anywhere from 6 to 20 years older than King, so a father figure situation could definitely be possible. We also see King is already a part of Kaido's crew, when they took over Wano and fought against Odin, so we know that King and Kaido have had a long relationship. And now I will eventually talk about the fire and the fire bending aspect to the Lunarian race. But before we get into King the Wildfire, I want to talk about Oars and Joy Boy and why I believe they were the same. In my previous video, I have an entire video explaining it, and shout out to the Wizard of Oars. Anyways, the king of the Ancient Kingdom was possibly Oars Joy Boy, the Oni race commander. It's possible that the Oni race was genocided, as we see Kaido attempting to resurrect his race with the numbers. Judge, Queen, and King could be attempting to bring back the Lunarian race via Sanji and Germa 66. A reason Kaido may hate humans could be because they genocided multiple races, including his own and King's. These races that lived during the Ancient Kingdom era. We also know that the Celestial Dragons are racist towards the fishmen, making them slaves and treating them poorly all around. Could the Celestial Dragons' next goal to be to genocide the fishmen, and maybe that's why Joy Boy apologized to them, because he knew they were next. The Celestial Dragons may want to eradicate every non-human race. If the Lunarians are gods and Onis are devils, that could be why they extinguished them first. Gods because they are a godlike race, and once they defeated them, the Celestial Dragons can now claim to be the new gods of the world. What if the Great War from 800 years ago also began with the attack and genocide of the Celestial Dragons on the Lunarians? Since we know they lived long before Mary Joyce was on the Red Line, and that was after the Void Century. Another strange connection is the name Lunarians and Celestial Dragons. Lunarians are also the Moon Gods. Luna meaning moon, and Whitebeard saying a race of gods lived up there. Meanwhile, Celestial Dragon has almost the exact same meaning. Celestial can mean heavenly or referring to space. Dragons are oftentimes godlike figures, especially in Eastern mythology and cultures. So essentially Lunarian and Celestial Dragon are very similar, both being gods from space. And also remember that Celestial Dragons have spacesuits and helmets and don't want to breathe the same air as everyone else, so they definitely fit the racist space theme. Is it a coincidence that we are getting so much talk about gods and kings lately? eMDee is connected to Celestial Dragons by living in Mary Joyce. By sitting in the throne, does that actually make eMDee the king of the gods? Get it? King and god? That is why I say Rox actually may have been a Lunarian. His revenge on the Celestial Dragons may have been to pursue revenge for his race who were once godlike figures. And keep in mind that Sengoku also said that Roger's greatest enemy was Rox. This is actually interesting because yes, Zebek had the will of D, but if he was a Lunarian, he was also a god. It can make sense to why Roger's greatest enemy was a god, the natural enemy to the gods. And how Rox also pursued a future as a Will of D member that challenged the Celestial Dragons. That's just a thought, but let me know what you think. The God Valley incident was an extinguished light. Sengoku says that the island the world government wanted to hide all along disappeared entirely. This was no mere coincidence. I'm almost sure of it. Information is being hidden on the Rox crew to the point where no one has even heard of them within the government ranks. But important information on God Valley is also being suppressed. Now quickly, I would like to give credit to Sensei Inc. for coming up for this next part. I've researched so many theories and videos and information on King, God Valley, and the Lunarians. However, he said something different from the rest that I found pretty interesting. Sensei Inc. researched the meaning of Lunaria and found that they have a connection to a flower called the Lunaria flower. These flowers are often white but can also be purple, and it seems pointless to bring this up, but when we first see eMDee, he is in a flower field. Are these Lunarias? And I got some more inspiration from a comment in my last Ors is Joy Boy video. Many of the speculation that this could represent the Garden of Eden, another religious but more specifically biblical reference. We know there is a Bible in One Piece, so that's definitely possible. Flowers and butterflies are the theme, and I started to look into this. If you look at Ohara, Robin is the sole survivor and has so much butterfly but more specifically flower connections. Also, purple and white are Robin's color scheme. I don't really believe this for sure, but I will throw it out there. What if the Lunarians were actually like an insect alien race? We already have minks and fishmen, so why not insects? But more likely, Lunarians may have been a dragon-like race, referencing the name Moon Gods, almost the same as Celestial Dragon. This will make the connection between Kaido and King even more interesting because Kaido and King would both be dragons, and because dragons are like gods in many mythology, the Lunarians could have been a dragon-like, godlike race. And also keep in mind that dragons don't necessarily mean the same as dragons as Kaido. For example, according to Oda and many scientists, dragon and dinosaurs may have been the same thing. Historians also believe that this is possible. King already has a Ryu no Mi. Ryu directly translates to dragon. And so King essentially already is a dragon if you go by that logic. The dragons and dinosaurs could be the same thing from an archaeological standpoint, while dragons could also be gods from a mythological standpoint. So here we have the connection of a dragon, or a godlike character. Now finally we can get back to the fire abilities the Lunarians had. The Gorosei and eMDee use very specific language. They speak of extinguishing the light. If King is a Lunarian, a race of godlike beings that could burst into flames, this adds even more proof to my theory that King's race was the first race to be genocided by the celestial dragons. Hear me out. How do you extinguish a fire? That's right, with a fire extinguisher. Extinguish the light is a very specific phrase and term that has been reused multiple times in the One Piece world. Extinguishing the light also could mean extinguishing the fire, because fire can be light. I believe they continue to use this term in reference to the first genocide that they ever carried out against the King's race. They literally extinguished the light by massacring the Lunarians who had fire. The fire represents the light, and the moon can also as well. So ever since that event, the celestial dragons referring to cleansings or genocide as light that needs to be extinguished was the Lunarians. Going back to Robin being connected to flowers and butterflies, she is also a survivor like King. Robin is known as the Devil Child, the opposite name of the gods. King may be from a race of gods. And Robin's other name though, it's the Light of the Revolution, a light that was meant to be extinguished just like King. So this is why I truly believe that King and the truth of his race will be massively important to the Secrets of the Void Century, just like Nico Robin and O'Hara were so important to find the truth about the past. Nico Robin also has wings and so does King, except King's wings are black. But did you know that King's wings are actually white? Or supposedly they are, because in the anime we can see that King's wings are white. So was this a mistake or foreshadowing? I personally believe that it was a mistake because it is black wings that could represent King's race being a fallen angel. And if this is true, it would be interesting if fallen angels and Oni races were allies. And Skypians also have these wings as well, so if we have these moon gods, then the opposite could be someone from Skypea or Shandia. The sun god Nika could be from the Lunarian race or one of these other races. But before I speak on the possibility for another version of the sun god, let's talk about Urouge. The first time we ever seen Kaido appear, he is with Urouge. Urouge and King also are very similar. Let's start off with the fact that they are both 47 years old, they both have a similar body build. King's wings look much more like Urouge than Skypians, and although Urouge's wings may be a broken wing, we have King of the Wildfire and then Urouge who has a fire tattoo. We have Urouge, captain of the fallen monk pirates, and King who might represent a fallen angel. Kaido's first appearance ever was with Urouge, and Kaido's first mate is King. And also, Urouge is almost always smiling, yet when Kaido attempted suicide by jumping off a sky island, Urouge gets very serious, almost as if he's paying his respects to Kaido. So there are many questions that need to be answered, and first of all, are King's wings due to his Lunarian heritage or a hybrid form that he prefers to stay in? Second, is Urouge somehow connected to King, or are these connections coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to Oda, but the problem is we don't really know much about Urouge or King. And in fact, it's almost as if Urouge is being saved for the endgame. I think it's possible that Urouge has the will of D. He's always smiling, and he's being saved for the end for a reason. He will most likely somehow end up being one of the most important characters from the supernovas, especially if he gets his shine in the future arc like Elbaf or the War. Also, why is Kaido not hostile with Urouge in any way? But we know Urouge had battles with Big Mom. Kaido forces Kid and Apu to join his crew even though they also invaded Big Mom. Same with Luffy. When it comes to Urouge, however, he seems to treat him so much different from the other supernovas. Even different than Luffy, who was also out in prison, who could possibly be Joy Boy. This is very interesting, and if Urouge was a Lunarian, that could be a reason why, since Kaido specifically hates humans. Maybe Kaido believes Urouge is actually the real Joy Boy. And maybe Urouge and King also have some kind of connection, and King put in a good word for him. This is all speculation, but I do think there is a connection between Urouge, and I do wonder if any of this will actually be confirmed later on in the series. And now finally, the sun god Nika. Nika could be a Lunarian with fire representing the sun, and them being gods. Nika could have also been a Skypian, which might be the opposite of the Lunarian. However, what if Nika was a fishman? Having moon gods and sun gods, now what is the opposite of fire? Well, water. The sun gods also have a direct connection to the fishmen. Fisher Tiger, he climbed up the red line with his bare hands and attacked Mary Joyce, doing so to free any fishman held slaves. He also set the city on fire. This could be something similar to the original sun god that they eventually end up getting tattooed. Now these were all random tangents, so let's get back on track. King and Queen are like Zoro and Sanji. They are both very close in power and have a hasteful rivalry. What if King was the first person to join Kaido's crew, just like Zoro was the first to join Luffy, and then maybe Queen was second? Just like Zoro's dream to become the greatest swordsman coincides with Luffy's to become the Pirate King. What if Kaido and King's goals and dream coexist? To wage war against the world government and celestial dragons and possibly all humans. Get revenge for their races that were killed. Keep in mind that Doflamingo also works with Kaido and also wants to start a war. Kaido is relying on Doflamingo to create this massive, bloodthirsty war. Doflamingo has also made an enemy of the people up top, and we've seen that in Impel Down. But for Kaido, this goal of his is so personal because they may have killed Rocks, wiped out his legend, and they might have even killed his entire race. Also, if they killed the only race on top of that, and Kings as well, and he found out from Rocks, you can see why Kaido is so insane and full of hatred. Doflamingo, he hates celestial dragons for his own reasons, and King may as well. Besides just the fact of his name being King, I believe there are so many important connections between Kaido, King, Rocks, and the God Valley incident as a whole. The island that the government wanted gone is finally disappeared, and this is where Rocks declared he would become king of the world. I truly believe it had something to do with the Lunarians, or at least the Void Century. Another possibility is that the Lunarians were previous versions of the Celestials. What if a reason why the Celestial Dragons always wanted God Valley extinguished was because it was the remaining proof that someone else existed on top of the Red Line, a rival to the gods? The mere existence of God Valley was proof of King's race, also proof of the world government genociding an entire civilization. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe. I have a lot of King, Rocks, Kaido content coming out, Joy Boy, Big Mom, all the big names currently in Wano. Man, One Piece has been phenomenal lately. Wano has been chapter after chapter, and there is so much content that I'm now coming to my mind, thinking about theories every day. So if you do like this content, stay tuned for the next one, and have a great day.